Welcome to Technovation. I'm your host, Peter High. My guest today is Douglas Boom. Doug is the principal engineer of Ethernet software at Intel, a position he's held for just over 2.5 years. In his role, he develops custom driver solutions for Intel Ethernet-based products, including data center switches, infrastructure for the Olympic Games, and self-driving cars, among others. Doug has been with Intel for 28 years, and I look forward to speaking with him about how Ethernet has evolved during his time with the company and what the future holds for Ethernet as well. Doug Boom, welcome to Technovation. It's great to speak with you today.
Thank you, Peter. It's a pleasure to be here.
Great. Well, Doug, I thought we would begin with your role. As I just mentioned, you're the principal engineer of Intel Ethernet. Most of us have some familiarity with what Ethernet is, but probably only a vague sense for many. Take a moment and offer a bit more, if you would, especially given the fact that you've been involved with it for most of 3 decades. Talk also about a bit about how it's evolved, if you would.
Ethernet is one of the fabrics of data that has found its way pervasively throughout of all of society. And when I started all those years ago, it was doing, the advanced, most up-to-date speed was 100 megabits. And now here, 28 years later, we're talking 200 gigabits plus. So, that's a huge change in terms of speed over just a couple of generations of products. And, watching Ethernet go from being a data center style interconnect where it would literally be just to plug into a server. Even, in the old days, it was like a network server, which was a file share server. And now with the dominant protocols coming out, IP protocol, TCP IP, that you end up having my desktop here is talking to your desktop there at the other end of the world somewhere. And it's like we're in the same room together. And that's really the power of Ethernet, is to interconnect not only people, but businesses and ideas, and do so at speeds that make it seem simultaneous.
I'd also love to talk to you a bit, Doug, about what some of the differences between Ethernet and other things that are similar to it. USB, for example, these are both ports on the side of my computer, and therefore the similarities abound. There must be the same thing, just a little bit different plugin associated with that, some might think. But talk a bit about the differentiation of Ethernet and some of the things that are often mistaken for it.
Yeah, it's kind of hilarious because, people just see the RJ45 connector. That's the standard way that most people interconnect with it. That's the connector that'll be like on the back of your television, for example. And they'll just, I just get a cable and I just plug it in, and then the internet is there. And they don't realize that it's very much like a duck swimming across a pond. Is that on the surface is this nice and calm little duck going, just moving across the lake. But underneath, right, there's 2 feet underneath that are just paddling like mad. There's a physical layer, which is the part that you actually plug into. And then there's the media access controller, which is the digital part that slices the data into a form that the CPU can understand. And so these 2 feet are just working madly underneath to make things happen. And that's where my role comes in, is that I help our partners to mate their choices of the physical layer to the capabilities of the digital layer in the Mac. And that takes a lot of work, and it takes a lot of time. And as much as everybody wants it to be like, blocks that just plug in and make it all work, every single physical layer has its own unique perspectives and challenges. And the Mac always has things that it likes to do better and worse. And partnering with our solution providers, we come together to make a solution that makes the duck look very efficient.
That's a great example. And I know from our previous conversations, Doug, that you had a number of interesting use cases associated with Ethernet as well. You told me a moving story about a health scare your wife had that made things very personal for you as to the uses of Ethernet. I wonder if you would mind sharing that story now.
Yeah, I love to tell this story. It really demonstrates the power of technology and the power of Ethernet, as well as it really speaks to how pouring yourself into your job can actually have secondary characteristics as well. So I was working with a great engineer, Jeff Hawker, with a partner of ours that was having a challenge with our 82547 and 82541 products. And it was a healthcare company. And I had just finished making the solution provider work. and went on with my normal daily life. And a couple months later, my wife came to me, and she was having some problems. And we went to the doctor, and it turns out that she might have cancer. And spoiler alert, she's fine. But we had to get an ultrasound to actually see what was going on. And as we sat waiting in the ultrasound room, waiting for the technician to come and take the measurements, I realized that that was the device that I had helped make the healthcare provider work, the solution work. And so my own work was going to help potentially save the life of my wife. And then that's when it really hit me on the power of Ethernet. And it isn't just a technology for letting two, CPU boxes or nerd boxes talk to each other. It's impactful on people's lives, and it really opened my eyes. And I started looking more around about what Ethernet is up to, and the amount of places that it is just shocking to me. But that one solution, I've got tons of stories to the point where it almost doesn't seem real at times, the number of places that I've helped Ethernet go and where Ethernet has gone. And there's tons of stories, and I know that we don't have enough time to cover all of them today.
I'd love to talk about some other case examples as well, if you don't mind, Doug. I know your work is represented on Mars, under the ocean, in Disney World, the Olympics. Maybe take one or a couple of those and provide a bit more color, as each are so interesting, and certainly I think bring to life the idea even more.
I mean, how do you put on your LinkedIn that you have software solutions on another planet, right? Is people just don't believe that. But Intel Ethernet has been chosen by a lot of providers to be on solutions that end up in just amazing places. And so we were making the rounds internally where an Intel CPU product had been found to have been on board the crane portion of the Perseverance module on Mars. And they had a picture of the board that they used, and in the corner of the board was very clearly our i211 Ethernet product. And I had written some software for that and worked with a software vendor to make a solution that turns out that was what was being used by NASA. And so it was just one of those moments of like, really, on Mars? And so I've had it there. I've had to work long weekends. My anniversary is actually usually Super Bowl weekend. So I had one opportunity where Intel Ethernet had been used in the Shuttle Safe program, where a solutions provider out of the Midwest had partnered with NASA for providing real-time, or within 5 minutes, I believe, all of the HD feeds from the launch pad had to be in Houston so they could make a abort or a mission go, no-go determination for the space shuttle when it was operable. And so, when I take vacations now, I love to go see the different orbiters because, again, my work was being involved to help make sure that those astronauts came back safe. And we've had either technology demos or partners that have been participating with Intel Ethernet solutions at the Olympics. So we've been there since 1998. So it's just always so much fun to walk around. And like, I went to Southern California to have a vacation, and I went on the ride that is using Intel Ethernet. And then my wife is like, you did that last time, but I was like, but it's still my work that's still there. So it always puts a smile on my face when I get to actually interact with some of the solutions that I've helped create across the world.
That's fascinating. Another story you told me that I found particularly interesting was the fact that Ethernet can save significant costs in the creation of cars. Why is that?
Yeah. So what people don't realize necessarily is that the cables within a car is like number 3 by cost and number 2 by weight. Only the transmission and engine complex is more expensive than just the cables that are running within the vehicle. And so there's so much and so many advances being made with automotive solutions, self-driving cars, and things that are driver assist technologies that require these higher data speeds. And old technologies like CAM and some of the other ones, serial buses, just aren't cutting the mustard. And so, people look towards Ethernet for it because, when you've got 100 gig speeds available, your backup camera is a trivial data load compared to that. But the challenge is that the old Cat6 cables were, particularly heavy, and it was unattractive to automotives. But now that there's a T1 PHY product on the marketplace, that's that physical layer. That's the one leg of the duck. and it works really well with the solutions that are like in the C3000 SoC solution that I work with quite a bit. So you would marry the left-hand foot of T1 to the right-hand foot of the C3000 solution, and now you've got an automotive version that has less weight, higher speeds, and is very turnkey solution space for all of the automotive providers. And I've worked with some of the automotive OS solution providers and some of the just largest names in the industry in Germany and Asia for creating some of these solutions. And so it's exciting to go car shopping and go, yep, my work's in there, my work's in there, my work's in there. And my wife's a saint. She's like, oh yes, I know. But it's a lot of fun, and it's just speaks to the places that Ethernet is able to go, and the creativity that it has allowed solution providers to unlock to make mankind have a better experience.
Great examples, Doug. Well, you're part of Intel. Obviously, you operate in a much broader context, and you're a principal engineer. There are other principal engineers as well. Talk a bit about the ecosystem across Intel that you operate within, and how those partnerships work, if you would.
Yeah, that's another part where, just like the RJ45 part, where people just see this, this duct performing at the surface. Intel Ethernet has offices all over the world, and we have great engineers all over the world. Taiwan, China, Romania, Israel, Canada, 5 or 6 just here in the United States. And all of us come together synergistically to help create this generation and the next generation of products. And there's another principal engineer in another part of Intel, Kent Lusted. He does the physical layer, so he's the left hand of the duct, and I do the software on the media access controller. So I'm the right hand of the duct, and it really shows how much it takes to come together. Like, for example, the story I was telling about the ultrasound solution for my wife. My partner in crime, Jeff, he was we always used to joke that he's the hardware Batman to my software Robin. And we would come together to create the solutions, because it takes both a hardware, fully functioning hardware solution, as well as then a fully functioning software solution to actually create an endpoint. And we have people that do testing so that we make sure that our solutions are IEEE conformant. We have burn-in tests to make sure that it has zero manufacturing defects for some of our automotive solution providers. It just takes hundreds of engineers to make this tiny little die that just ends up being in the console of the car that you just bought. But it does take a village to make these solutions.
Thanks for that overview. I wonder also, as I mentioned at the outset, you've worked most of 3 decades at Intel. What is it about your experience there that's kept you with the company so long?
The people, first of all. I mean, Intel is really great at recruiting and hiring just A players. The personalities, I've been blessed with so many great managers and great visionaries that I've been able to work with, and so that's really been keeping me around. The technology aspect, the envelope's always been being pushed, and there's always new technologies, and so 100 megabit, 1 gig, 10 gig, 100 gig, that's always been able to kind of keep me activated. When I moved in the mid 2000s into more of a customer facing role, being able to partner with other solution providers to create just amazing solutions, what really got me addicted, and really seeing what my work was able to do to change the lives around me and the lives around the world really really is what gets me out of bed, because making a web page load a millisecond faster, that's not very exciting to me, but helping people to get to school on time safely in snowy conditions because the automotive sensors are working correctly, that's the type of stuff when you feel like your work impacts the world and really impacts lives. That's really when you're willing to burn the midnight oil and have a great time being here.
You talked a bit about the collaborations across the organization. I'd love to hear more about the team that you run. Talk a bit about how it's grown, the skills that you've been acquiring, and as well, and other aspects of the makeup of the team, if you would.
It's always a funny question in Intel because we changed teams so many times. I really adopted the whole Intel Ethernet family, And I work with primarily right now, the team that I'm embedded with is solutions providers for the SoC system on a chip ecosystem. And so that's the the Atom and Xeon based SoCs. Is that team right now? There's a lot of market vigor there that requires a little bit more focus, and so that's the team that I'm partnering with. But there's NVM, a non-volatile memory, so that's the part that stores the personality of the solution. And so I work with those providers to create those personalities. I work with hardware engineers for, is the layout correct? They've wired the KR interface correctly? Is the MDIO correct? Is those types of hardware interfaces are all programmatically set up? I work with planners like Carl and in Zoli and Ofer that help provide solutions and interactions with other technologies, because as much as I'm a principal engineer, there's only so much one brain can hold. And so I surround myself luckily with some genius people that help me create solutions around 1588 virtualization and other things where the ecosystem is just much too large for any one person to absorb. And together we create solutions that are standing the test of time so far.
I also wanted to ask you, Doug, what excites you most as you look to the future of Ethernet? Where do you see it going, and where do you see some of the greatest value being derived from it?
Just customers are always pushing innovation, always pushing the boundaries. I'm working with a provider for an autonomous electric helicopter taxi, which is a sentence that didn't even parse 2 years ago, right? And now it's just like, oh yeah, I know exactly what that means. So on the partner side, it's great that there's always new innovation there. Intel is pushing the solution space forward. So there's the infrastructure processing unit, or IPU, that is a new technology that Intel's been working on. It's really allowing a re-envisioning of the way the network works within a data center. It's moving microservices and a lot of the day-to-day infrastructure from the CPU onto the IPU, which allows your CPU to be doing more cost-effective tasks, more billable tasks, and allows for creative things like you have one image that your entire data center boots off of, because you effectively have one virtual hard drive that is running your entire data center. So the IPU is going to open up a whole bunch of new opportunities and market segments, as well as the old just get me some packets and get them to me fast is always going to be there, and that's always going to be a new area for expansion, just because customers, as they get exposed to Ethernet, start envisioning newer and newer things that do greater and greater opportunities.
Fascinating. Those give us a lot to keep our eyes open for. Well, Doug Boom, thank you for a very compelling conversation unpacking what Ethernet is, what it isn't, where you see it going, and why you have remained so excited operating within this topic for such a large swath of your career. It's been a fascinating conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Peter. It's been great talking to you. I really appreciate your time today.